May 18, 1941, Gottenhafen on the Baltic Sea. The German battleship Bismarck slips from its anchorage and slowly leaves the harbor. More than 2,000 men are aboard. The heavy cruiser Prinz Eugen follows behind. This is the beginning of Operation Rheinübung, the first and last combat voyage of Germany's newest battleship. Its mission appears simple. The two ships must break into the North Atlantic and attack British merchant convoys. Those convoys carry food, fuel, weapons, and raw materials, without which Britain cannot continue the war. A single fast battleship could stop shipping across a vast area simply by appearing beyond the reach of land-based aircraft. Bismarck carries 8 380mm guns, heavy armor, and enough power to reach roughly 30 knots. Earlier German raids had shown how surface ships could strike vulnerable targets and force Britain to scatter its warships. Admiral Günther Lütjens had commanded one of those operations. Now, he was expected to repeat it with a more powerful ship. His orders were to avoid unnecessary combat with an equal opponent. The objective was not the Royal Navy. The objective was trade. Secrecy began to collapse almost immediately. On May 20th, the Swedish cruiser Gotland sighted the German ships in the Kattegat. A report of the encounter reached the British naval attaché in Stockholm. The following day, a reconnaissance aircraft photographed Bismarck and Prinz Eugen in a fjord near Bergen. The images were rushed to London. When another flight showed that the anchorage was empty, the conclusion was clear. Germany was attempting to send major warships into the Atlantic. The Royal Navy began closing the possible escape routes. Cruisers watched the passages between Greenland, Iceland, and the Faroe Islands. The battlecruiser HMS Hood and the new battleship HMS Prince of Wales sailed north under Vice Admiral Lancelot Holland. HMS King George V and the aircraft carrier HMS Victorious also left Scapa Flow. The hunt had begun, but the British did not know which passage Lütjens would choose. On the evening of May 23rd, the cruiser HMS Suffolk spotted the German ships in the Denmark Strait. Low cloud, fog, and fields of drifting ice turned the sea into a gray maze. Suffolk withdrew and continued tracking the enemy by radar. The cruiser, HMS Norfolk, soon joined the pursuit. It approached too closely and Bismarck opened fire. The shells missed, but the blast from Bismarck's own guns disabled its forward radar. Prinz Eugen was ordered to take the lead. Through the night, the two British cruisers remained behind the German formation and transmitted its position. The Germans tried to escape with sudden turns and changes of speed. Snow and fog occasionally concealed them, but their marks returned to Suffolk's radar. Each transmission warned the fleet about another change of course. Lütjens understood that surprise had been lost. Instead of turning back, his ships continued southwest. Two British capital ships were moving to intercept them. Shortly after dawn on May 24th, lookouts aboard Hood saw smoke on the horizon. Hood had been the world's largest warship when completed in 1920. For 2 decades, it represented British power in ports across the globe. But its protection reflected an earlier era, and a planned reconstruction had never been completed. Now, the 20-year-old symbol was sailing beside Prince of Wales, a battleship so new that it had not finished preparing for combat. Holland approached almost directly toward the enemy to close the distance quickly. This limited the threat from shells falling steeply onto Hood's decks, but prevented the British ships from using their rear turrets. At 5:52, Hood opened fire. The Germans replied several minutes later. The British initially mistook the leading Prinz Eugen for Bismarck. The order to shift targets came after the battle began. One of the first German hits started a fire on Hood's boat deck. Then, at about 6 o'clock, another flash appeared near the rear mast. A massive explosion tore through the ship. The precise route of the fatal shell remains disputed, but it reached the aft ammunition magazines. Hood disappeared beneath the surface in about 3 minutes. There were 1,418 men aboard. Only 3 survived. Prince of Wales was suddenly alone against 2 German ships. The battleship was so new that civilian technicians were still aboard, and the mechanisms inside its main turrets repeatedly failed. Even so, it scored several hits on Bismarck. One shell passed through the bow near the waterline. Seawater entered the ship, part of its fuel supply became inaccessible, and a visible trail of oil spread behind it. German shells also struck Prince of Wales. One passed through the bridge and killed almost everyone in its path, leaving only a few survivors, including Captain John Leach. With damaged equipment and malfunctioning guns, the British battleship laid a smokescreen and withdrew. Lutyens had won the engagement, but Bismarck could no longer perform its mission. The ship was taking on water and losing fuel. Prince Eugen separated and continued into the Atlantic. Bismarck turned toward occupied France, where repairs, air cover, and a protected harbor were waiting. Hundreds of miles still separated the damaged ship from safety. The destruction of Hood transformed the operation. It was Britain's greatest naval disaster of the war so far. The Admiralty sent a direct order: sink the Bismarck. Battleships, cruisers, destroyers, carriers, and patrol aircraft joined the search. Some ships abandoned convoy duties. Others risked exhausting their fuel. Bismarck could not be allowed to reach France. Late on May 24th, 9 Swordfish torpedo bombers took off from Victorious. They were slow biplanes with open cockpits, machines that appeared outdated even in 1941. They found Bismarck in darkness and bad weather. One torpedo struck the armored belt, but caused no decisive damage. The attack still forced the German ship to maneuver. It also demonstrated that carrier aircraft could reach Bismarck far from land. Several hours later, Bismarck made an unexpected turn and crossed behind the cruisers following it. At 3:06 on the morning of May 25th, Suffolk lost radar contact. The British search continued in the wrong direction. For several hours, the Atlantic swallowed the battleship again. The lost contact created several possible routes. Bismarck could be returning to Norway or continuing toward France. Admiral John Tovey divided his forces among the likeliest paths. Every choice left another area unguarded. Even a warship 250 meters long became a tiny point among clouds, fog, and waves. Lutyens did not know that his pursuers had lost him. That morning, he transmitted a long message to German command. British stations detected the signal, but the first interpretation of the data only increased the confusion. Several formations searched too far north. Meanwhile, Bismarck continued toward France. Every hour brought it closer to the protection of German aircraft. By the morning of May 26th, the British position had become critical. The heavy ships were running low on fuel. If Bismarck was not found soon, the pursuit would have to end. Then a Catalina patrol aircraft noticed an oil trail on the water. At around 10:30, its crew saw a large warship beneath the clouds. It was Bismarck. The ship was roughly 700 miles west of France and moving fast enough to escape the main British force. The only formation capable of delaying it was approaching from the south. Admiral James Somerville's Force H included HMS Renown, HMS Sheffield, and the aircraft carrier HMS Ark Royal. That afternoon, Ark Royal launched its first Swordfish attack. The pilots received inaccurate information and attacked the first large ship they encountered. It was Sheffield. Several torpedoes exploded prematurely because of defective magnetic detonators. The cruiser avoided the rest. The mistake nearly destroyed Britain's final opportunity. The aircraft returned to Ark Royal, received new torpedoes, and took off again. That evening, 15 Swordfish flew into rain squalls and heavy wind. The weather threw the small aircraft above the waves as German anti-aircraft guns filled the sky with explosions. Their low speed made their movement difficult to predict. The pilots approached from different directions and released their torpedoes close to the surface. At least 2 torpedoes struck Bismarck. One caused limited damage. Another exploded near the stern and wrecked the steering system. The rudders became trapped at an angle, and the ship began turning in a wide circle. Engineers tried to steer by changing the propeller's speed. Repair teams entered flooded compartments. The crew considered blasting away the damaged rudders, but the rough sea and twisted metal made this impossible. The wind turned Bismarck back toward its pursuers. Lutyens sent a message reporting that the ship could no longer maneuver. Its location was now known, and there was no route of escape. British destroyers approached during the night. Among them was the Polish destroyer Piorin. The smaller ships attacked with torpedoes in heavy seas and forced the German crew to remain at battle stations for hours. The exact results of those attacks remain uncertain. Their main purpose was to keep Bismarck under observation until dawn. At 8:47 on the morning of May 27th, the battleships HMS Rodney and King George V opened fire. Norfolk and the cruiser HMS Dorsetshire joined them. Bismarck answered, but its course remained unpredictable, and its damaged stern made accurate fire difficult. British shells soon destroyed rangefinders, command positions, and main gun turrets. Central fire control disappeared. Bismarck's guns fell silent one after another. The British ships continued firing as the distance decreased. Bismarck's upper structure became a burning mass of metal, but the armored hull remained afloat. Tovey could not remain indefinitely. His battleships needed fuel for the return voyage, and German submarines might be nearby. Shortly after 10 o'clock, the battleships turned away. Dorsetshire approached and fired torpedoes. Inside Bismarck, German sailors prepared to sink their own ship. Demolition charges were placed and valves were opened. At 10:39, the battleship rolled over and disappeared. The immediate cause of its sinking remains disputed. British shells and torpedoes had left the ship defenseless and doomed. The German crew's actions may have accelerated the final descent. These explanations do not exclude each other. Dorsetshire and HMS Maori began pulling survivors from the cold water. A submarine warning then forced the rescue to end. Of more than 2,200 people aboard Bismarck, only about 115 survived. The operation had lasted 9 days. Some British ships found the target, others maintained contact. Aircraft slowed the battleship, and heavy guns completed the action. Success came from a chain of sightings, signals, errors, and decisions. Prince Eugen escaped and eventually reached a French port, but it sank no merchant ships during the operation. Bismarck destroyed Hood, yet never reached the convoys it had been sent to attack. Its loss demonstrated that speed and armor could no longer protect a ship being followed by radar, radio direction finding, and carrier aircraft. In 1989, an expedition led by Robert Ballard discovered Bismarck on the floor of the Atlantic. Its hull rested almost 5 kilometers beneath the surface, far from the harbor it had tried to reach. Later investigations revealed the scale of the damage, but they did not end the argument over the ship's final minutes. Its last answer still lies 4,790 meters below.